Wicked. Brrr, here we are. Selina Jane Louise. I'm not big on doing these amazing intros personally. I'm like, this person is this and that and that and the other and such and doing a grandiose. So I like to leave that up to my guests. So if you would like to introduce yourself to the Flow fam, that would be amazing. Or you don't have to as well. We can just chat.
I'd love to. Thank you very much. Well, thanks for having me to start with. What an exquisite pleasure on a Saturday afternoon to share wisdom and knowledge with many people, including your community. I am... The tag that they give me is breast cancer survivor. I don't like it. So I go with advocate. So my journey over the last 9-10 months has been one that I would never have suspected be part of my life. So, but the journey, as people seem to label it, I call it an adventure ride, has taken me from coaching people and working with people to empower them to be the best versions of themselves wherever they are in the world, within their body, within their marriages, within their businesses, in their non-for-profit organizations I coach in there as well. The breast cancer just gave it a totally different edge, and now it's about giving people permission to listen to themselves about what they want and trusting their intuition. And at the same time, it's kind of enabled me to step into a whole different arena, because the medical profession lives off of fear-based delivery of service, whereas I kind of came at this at the mindset of, well, you know what, cancer is wrong and fuck with, so I don't plan to have this get me off the planet. So how can I change this?
Can you just repeat that? Can you just repeat that? It was a bit glitchy.
So I came at it with, cancer picked the wrong woman to fuck with.
Yes.
So what I found was, the medical profession is so fear-based. How can I make this so that the emotional mindset, which is the half the game, to, I'm going to sit here and have the diagnosis define me. So, I have a diagnosis and I have a verdict. So here's the diagnosis, but I'm going to defy the verdict. So, and that's pretty much what I've done. But I also believe that if I hadn't have done the mindset work and the transformational work 3.5-4 years ago on myself through many different avenues, I wouldn't be here. Like, I wouldn't have through the entire adventure ride. I probably would have chosen another option, to say the least.
Another option? How do you mean?
I probably... I look back now, and I can say this now because it'll be 1 year next month since diagnosis. And if I hadn't have been so clear in my mind about what I wanted and how I wanted to live moving forward, the wouldn't have survived. So you have a choice. Yeah. And that's where I find when I'm, been speaking to different groups and different communities, and they say to me, I don't have a choice. This is all I have. And it's like, yes, you do. Your choice is to live with everything you've got. And I know it sometimes, there are days where I couldn't get out of bed. I'm 36 years old and my mother had to walk me to the bathroom because I couldn't get up. But you know what, on those days I got up and I went to the bathroom, and that's why I shared on my business page. It went from, inspiration and coaching through to sharing the entire process. And I did live videos in chemo. I did live videos for the injections I have to have every month. I even had a lady message me from the UK to say, thank you. I didn't know what my injection was going to be like, and your video's just given me a whole insight. So thank you very much. I don't feel so scared anymore.
Amazing.
And that's the thing for me. If one person takes one thing and shifts their entire thinking for that day, that's a ripple effect for their life. So then that has such a beautiful effect in that moment. And all I did was be real. you know, I didn't hide the pain. I didn't hide the, you know, the darkness, and it was there a lot. So, you know, you have to look at, who do I want to be coming forward out of this? So it was like diving into the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an ancient Greek goddess who actually removes her left breast so that she can fire an arrow and lead her troops through battle, and be like, you know, the most perfect leader and warrior that she can be in that moment. But she had to go into the underworld to train. So I kind of likened my adventure to that. I had to dive into the underworld, do my training, release what I needed to release, heal what I needed to heal, and rise up out the other side. So to rise, you fall first. And I did. And I did it, you know, some days very gracefully and other days not so. But if it wasn't for trusting in my mind and trusting my intuition, we wouldn't be sitting here with a diagnosis, because my doctors weren't looking for breast cancer when I went to them with why I was so tired all the time. 9 months of blood tests and poking and prodding, and I'm the one that found the lump. So I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't put my finger on it until I did.
What's the the protocol, or how important do you feel is, you know, the self-massage, the self-checking as a part of like the prevention or the discovery of, you know, so that then you can begin the either recovery or prevention, or, you know, this kind of journey. You mentioned that you were the one that found and you weren't even looking for, like, yeah, how important is that? Is that a regular thing that you are an advocate for? And what's the message that you would like to share around that?
Absolutely. I think when we live in this world that is so chaotic and so busy and so fast-paced driven all the time, and we forget to tap into our bodies, and we forget that our bodies are constantly communicating with us about what they're trying to do and achieve. So, you know, literally your heart is beating from the moment you are conceived. So it's the muscle that's constantly there, and yet so often we dismiss what we feel in our hearts and what they're trying to tell us. And that's where, for me, intuitively, I would do a self-examination probably 2-3 times a year, because at the end of the day, like, there's no breast cancer in my family. I'm under 40. They're all the standardization statistics that the doctors tell you to be aware of. So I just was like, you know, something isn't right. So, you know, and I kept trying to sleep more, and, you know, I was clean eating, and I was exercising, I was doing yoga and meditation, I was journaling, like, and doing all the things that,
you were listening.
Yeah, I was listening, and trying to do all the things that made me feel good, even though I was just constantly couldn't shake this endless fatigue. And now it's like, I want women and men to listen to their bodies more and more, and to trust that intuition. We're born with it. It is this innate skill and gift that we have, and yet we spend a lot of time dismissing it because, you know, we want to keep up with the Joneses, or, you know, we're afraid of looking bad, or whatever it is, or people might think
that's woo-woo, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so woo-woo. So, you know, I'm like, let's embrace the woo-woo. Like, thousands of years there's been Chinese medicine being done, like the American Navajo Indians, that, you know, their medicine chiefs were the one you went to, and they trusted, you know, the earth and the spirits and the body and the mind. It's only in this realm of living now that, you know, people kind of dismiss that, and yet it's been around empowering human race for centuries. So I trust that ancient knowledge in my mind, and knowing that my unconscious mind is so powerful that I need to tap into it more and more. It's, you know, the one thing that I can trust more than anything else. And, you know, when we look at the statistics, if we want to go down that path, 5% of women under 40 are diagnosed with breast cancer. And now I sit in that statistic. Well, great. So, you know, what's next? You're just going to leave me there? And literally they do. They just go, yeah, you sit in that little box now. No, I'm going to blow the box out of the water, and I'm going to go against everything you defiantly told me that's going to happen. So, you know, my oncologist laughed at me because I told her I was only going to choose 3 symptoms out of the chemo side effects. And they give you like I had 6 pages of side effects that were coming. And I said, oh, I'll pick that one and that one and that one. That sound good to me. She went, you can't pick your symptoms. You can't pick your reaction. I'm like, watch me. I had one that wasn't planned, but literally the ones I chose were the ones I got. And that's your mindset. Like some people say to me,
sounds like a challenge.
yeah, they're like, you talked yourself into it. I'm like, really? I didn't want to spend days vomiting. You know, I didn't want to be sick to start with. I didn't want to look like a cancer patient either, which is also why I said yes to trialing the Coleman cap from Europe, so that I didn't need a wig. Like I didn't lose my hair. So, you know, yeah, I had groovy ball patches, but my hair used to be
I love the reframe.
yeah, groovy ball patches. Yeah.
Like Tank Girl.
Yeah, pretty much. My hair was down to my waist. Well, long past that, it was all the way down to my backside, and I cut it off and I donated it. So I still had a short bob, which I still have now. But you know, now I get to advocate, you know, for this new technology.
Tell us more about this new tech, the one you mentioned.
So it comes from Europe and has been designed, you know, what they used to do is put cold packs on your head and literally tape it to your head, which of course don't stay cold for very long, right? So a gentleman, he invented this machine when his wife was going through breast cancer, and it literally is a helmet that sits on your head. You have to, they recommend having your hair short anyway, especially for women, because it's quite painful and quite tight on your scalp. Then you comb through conditioner, put the cap on with a very tight strap, and you know, you have this on for, you know, I had it on for 8 hours every time. So you get up a little bruised under your chin. Turn the machine on. The machine literally pumps freezing cold air into a pipe at the back of your head. So air. So it's like, I called it, it's like a snow machine basically. So Olaf from Frozen. That's what it looks like, this little machine. And it does this, and it just sucks onto your head. And what the theory behind it is that the coldness actually prevents the chemo from coming into the hair follicles. So it kind of goes
cryogenically frozen almost or something.
Pretty much, you got it, cryogenically frozen. And that's when I took the cap off at the end of the 8 hours, I was covered in ice. You know, so
I was wondering how that'd keep it cold. I was thinking as you were saying it, describing it to us, I was thinking, is it dry ice they use? But then you mentioned it's cold air.
Yeah, and because you've got the conditioner on your head, you know, there's water, and you know, it does drip. Like when they turn the machine off, there's moisture there. And if, you know, people want to go check out my Facebook page, Selina Jane Louise, you can actually go back through the videos and you'll see it where we've actually taken it off, and you know, we've filmed the whole, what my head looked like. It is excruciatingly painful. I won't lie to people.
It's like excruciatingly painful. Like what are we talking? Like broken like fracture, or are we talking like someone?
It's like 1,000 knives going through your head.
Okay, so it's like 8 hours of that.
No, your head goes numb. So, so think of the worst ice cream headache you've had, and then times that by 1,000, and that's what's all over your head. But after, like, I think from memory, 15 minutes, like your head goes numb. So you don't know.
I can just see that a lot of people tuned in were super excited about it until you said that. That'd be a great idea. That, maybe not.
And they're like, no. And that's why I want to advocate for it, because, you know, unless you've sat there and had it done yourself while you're having chemo done, and, you know, like, you can take it off. But I didn't. I chose to keep it on the entire time because I was the first person in Brisbane to trial it, and I wanted to see if it was going to be a success. And if it gives women choice, right? Yep. If it gives women choice and freedom around how they look and feel throughout their treatment, then so be it. And at the end of the day, it's 8 hours. You're sitting on your ass anyway while they're pumping this shit into you.
How many times is the application?
So it's every chemo session.
Okay.
So you put it on for an hour to 2 hours prior to chemo starting, and then you leave it on through chemo, and then you take it off about 60 to 90 minutes after. But I opted to do 2 hours either side because no one had done it here in Brisbane. So I was like, well, why not? Let's see what happens.
And just talking a little bit about the process, what does it entail? So you get diagnosed, and then you're like, these are your options, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this option, that option. And then once you choose an option, what happens from there? What does that look like? I know we can go and watch your Facebook videos, but just give us a quick summary of what it looks like for those of us who have no idea or haven't done any research or have never experienced it.
Yeah, and I guess when you've never experienced it, you're like a deer in headlights. So from the moment of finding the lump and seeing my doctor, I could not get in to get an ultrasound that day, so I had to go the next afternoon.
What was that like? That 24 hours?
Honestly, I tried not to think about it because I didn't want to blow it out of proportion. What if it was just a little benign lump? Because, women, we have lumps in our breasts anyway. And as you get older, you get calcification. And I haven't had children. So that's one part of, your breast tissue changing. And this is really important for men to be aware of as well, because you know what? You love breasts and, you like to touch them. If you notice something that changes in your partner's breast tissue, don't be afraid to talk to her about it, because honestly, I know my breast, but at the same time, this lump kind of just appeared out of nowhere. It wasn't there 3 months earlier. So, but you could notice it looking in the mirror. So it is just really, it comes back to that self-awareness so much so. And that 24 hours was just like, don't panic. Like, it could be a benign cyst, just, all's good, not a problem. It was during that ultrasound that she said to me, this is really concerning. You need to see your doctor as soon as you can. I said, well, it's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. She's like, get an appointment first thing tomorrow. She said, I'll send this over urgent. I was like,
is that okay. Ethical? That tone of, as she mentioned it too, sounds shit scary. I'll be.
I was just like, right, okay, so maybe this is more serious than what I was making it out to be. So I went outside and had a bit of a cry, rang my doctor, and she's like, I'll put you in the first thing in the morning, come and see me at 8:30. I was like, all right.
So that 12 hours, what was that like?
We went and did stuff. I live with my person, as I call her, my bestie, and she knew, and she's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm outside the sonographer's office and I don't want to drive. She's like, right, don't move.
And you're on the phone.
Yeah. She's like, don't move, just stay there and I'll come and get you. And she came and got me, and we went and had a cup of coffee, and we just were like, okay, so we're not going to jump to conclusion, but we'll know. Got 12 hours. So the next morning I went for a run, and I think that day was one of my best, mileage per kilometre.
You were going hard.
I was going hard. I was like, just put it out of your head. Just put it out of your head. And when I went and saw my GP, as soon as I walked in, she's like, Selina, I've booked you into the Mater, which is a hospital here in Brisbane. And she said, they're going to see you today. And I was like, really? Right. Like right now? She's like, right now, you need to go there right now. And I was like, right. And again, I rang my bestie and just went, so they're sending me to Mater. And she's like, when? I'm like, now. She's like, okay, I'm coming. So I went and picked her up from work. What a great way to spend a Wednesday, and spent the entire day at the hospital waiting. So that day they did what they call a mammogram. I had 2 that day, most excruciating thing in the world.
What does that entail?
So it's an insane size machine that basically takes your breast and squishes it between plates.
What are we talking like
we're talking
a lot of people will be listening as well, so they can't see. So
let's go. The machine was about 8 feet tall.
Wow.
And then, but it actually has a section that moves in 360 degrees, and inside that machine is imagine a claw opening up. You place your breast tissue on that, and then they place the plate on top and they squish it.
So you step into it? So you walk up to it?
You walk up to it and you're standing there at chest height, and they adjust it for your height. And you've got incredible nursing staff who are just so incredibly supportive and nurturing, because it is really uncomfortable. So for gentlemen who are listening, it's like getting your testicles and having it squished between 2 metal cold plates. And then you can't move and you can't breathe because they have to take a film of it.
For what? How long is that? It's like getting an X-ray, essentially.
It's like getting an X-ray, yeah. So in the middle of that,
3 seconds, 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think it was a 10-second scan on each one, and then I had to have another one because they wanted a different angle. And this is already on top of the ultrasound I'd had the day before. And then in the middle of all of this, of course, being 36 and single, the next thing they say to you, now, while you're sitting at the hospital, and you need to consider your options around fertility.
Get in the fertility clinic while you're at it, yeah.
Yep. So I hadn't thought That hadn't even entered my head. And by this point, we still weren't talking breast cancer. We were just talking, priorities. Let's have a look at options. That afternoon, they popped me in for a fine needle analysis and a biopsy. And literally, her words were, "This is concerning. We will get this rushed through due to your age. And you need to make an appointment with your doctor on Friday afternoon." So and while this is all going on, my boss, who was, quite supportive at the time, he was messaging me going, "Are you all right? You're not answering my calls. What's going on?" Like,
you're like, "I don't know. I have nothing to tell you just yet."
Yeah, I'm still at the hospital. He's like, "Well, you call me when you're finished." So, because at the same time, I'm meant to be at work doing my job. At this point, I'm coaching in a non-for-profit organisation to help support the staff, and I wasn't anywhere to be found. So this was all so whirlwind, because you go from, a simple checkup at the doctor's to biopsies and mammograms and fertility and, it may happen or this may not happen. Do you have family history? If so, what that looks like. And that's one thing I want people to really clear about. I have no family history of breast cancer. I am the first one. And I have 19 cousins, and I have 7 aunts and uncles. So on one side of the family, and on, I have, my sister, and she has 2 daughters. So, it's not just about affecting you. It all of a sudden becomes about the ripple effect into your family as well. So that also was in the back of my head. Like, if this is true, then I have to go and talk to all my female cousins and my sister and my nieces and have them be more alert and vigilant. So in saying that, by the Friday afternoon, it wasn't unfortunately my GP. She went on maternity leave the day before my diagnosis, so I had to see a new GP. And the poor man, he's such a sweetheart. He was just like, "I know normally Ria would be doing this, but I feel," and I went, and I said, I just looked at him and I said, "It's okay, just tell me." And he just looked at me and he went, "You have invasive carcinoma." I was like, "Okay." And he looked at me and he goes, "But you knew that already." And I said, "Yeah, I just didn't want to make a big deal out of it." And he's like, "Well, this is a big deal." He said, "Breast cancer in a woman at your age," he said, is a big deal.
Why is that? And first of all, why is that?
Why is it a big deal for women under 40?
Correct, as opposed to at a different age.
His words to me were, because you're so young and because of the lifestyle that you lead, the impact, although big for anyone who gets diagnosed, when you're younger, it's a very different game to play. So when you're an older woman, you've been through menopause, you've had your children, you might have been on hormone replacement therapy, you might have been on the pill for 50 years. There's multiple different things that coincide with that.
So it's got to do with the endocrine system and the hormones and
your hormones, exactly.
That's what makes it such a big deal.
Yeah. And, they don't want you to wait either. So, and literally that Friday afternoon, he made me an appointment with a surgeon on the Monday. So I asked him to read me the pathology report, because I'm not a medical physician. I don't understand a lot of the lingo and the jargon that they use. So he went through that with me. My mum and my bestie were sitting outside. So he asked me, do you want me to go get them? And I was like, you can, but I can't look at them and tell them this. So you're going to have to do that for me. And he's like, that's the least I can do. So my mum was in complete denial and kept saying, "No, this is not happening. It should be me." And I'm like, "Well, it shouldn't be anyone. Like, let's not even go there." And it was just a matter of what's the next step. And so leaving the doctor's surgery, it was a bit of I remember looking at him and he's just like, "I'm just so sorry." And I said, "Don't say sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. Nobody's dying." I said, "It's just a lump that decided that it was going to show up in quite an aggressive manner." And he smiled at me and I said to him, "But you can give me a hug now." And he's like, "That's okay." Because he's like, "I'm a man, I can't hug you." And I'm like, "You can hug me. I'm not going to make an issue out of it. You're a human being." Exactly.
Sue, Mama. I got you.
So
And the other word, sorry, just let me jump in. The invasive what? Sorry,
so they label it invasive carcinoma.
carcinoma, and that's
So which basically means stage 2 breast cancer.
okay. And
So
what else are the other options? If that happens, you go through that same process and go, well, this is the diagnosis. What are the other options it could have been or could be for other people?
So there's stages 1 to 4, and it could be ducted, which means it's in the milk ducts, which means, of course, that's further spread throughout the breast tissue. Mine was not in the milk duct, and it was they call it invasive because it's pushing out the tissue cells. So they're like having a bit of a fight, and they're swelling up. So when we did the scan, and then I had to have an MRI as well on both my breasts, because they wanted to just make sure that it wasn't just the one side, because the original scans said that there were lumps in both, which I didn't find out until I saw a surgeon. So
go on.
You Google everything, which not all women will, but I did, and probably not the wisest idea in the world, because you overwhelm yourself with so many worst case scenarios. There was nothing that was nurturing to your mind. It was all worst case.
Yeah,
and you get that they have to do the worst case, right? But you're kind of going, all right.
Is it absolutely?
Yeah, like what are my odds here? Like the odds were the fact that why am I even having breast cancer? How did that even occur? Like, so I gave that question up to the universe and just went, it is what it is. And I remember sitting in the surgeon's office, and he hadn't even looked at my file. He hadn't even looked at, the scans. So in front of me and my mum and my best friend, he's just pulled it out and he's just started talking to himself, and then he's gone, okay, and he's turned the envelope over and he's drawn a picture on the back and went, this is option A, this is option B. And I was like, right.
Option A being?
That's it. Like I don't have any, there's not option C or option D. We live in a really modern medical world. Basically either get your breast removed or completely, so have a mastectomy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have a lumpectomy, which they remove the lump and any lymph nodes, which they'd also do if you had a mastectomy anyway, and then reconstruct your breast with what is left. So this didn't actually instill any confidence in me, in his abilities, with the way he was conducting himself. And lovely gentleman, like beautiful bedside manner. You could see that he's quite caring, but just the way he approached the situation made it rather even more nerving. I think it really got real that Monday sitting in the surgeon's office. I was like, actually, yeah, holy fuck, I have breast cancer.
So that was a level of detachment on his behalf in the way he presented that. Is that sort of the training that they have, and then they're encouraged to operate in this way? Or
that's a really good point, because when we walked out, my best friend and I are looking at each other, and I'm like, And she's looking at me, she's like, I don't think he's your surgeon. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I thought I was just being paranoid, because my mum's like, he's really nice. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I really like him. And I'm like, I do too. And then it took my bestie to go, no, I don't think he's your surgeon. I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm not being emotional. I don't resonate with this person. And then a friend put me in touch with someone who'd been through it, and she recommended another surgeon. So she's like, go and talk to this woman. I'm like, oh, all right. So I researched her, and she had a very good reputation.
And how did you end up with the first one in the first place? So the doctor was like,
that was my GP's recommendation.
Whoever was available, he knows a guy. You didn't know much about him.
No, and all I knew was that he was a referral from my GP. He had a good reputation, and he could see me in the public system, which could be up to a 6-week wait. And I was like, right, so, because keep in mind, the first week of this, I've already coughed up $2,000 in medical bills alone, just to, have, my breasts pretty much poked and prodded. And, a biopsy is like having an iron rod that's, like they might give you a local anesthetic to insert the biopsy needle, but inside it is a burning sensation of heat. And, it got to the point where I was, squeezing my own hand and literally cutting the skin on my hand from my nails because I was squeezing so tight.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's all these different factors coming in, the finance side of it, the emotional side of it, the physical side of it. And it took this beautiful lady, Sharon, who was recommended to me by a friend.
This is the new surgeon?
This is the new surgeon. And she just said, call Dr. Jenny Goff's rooms at the Wesley and go and see her. Her dad is one of the best, and so is she. And I was like, okay. So they squeezed me in the next week, so that Thursday. So 3 days after I saw the first surgeon. And I was like, I want a second opinion. You know, none of this is sitting right with me. When I got there, I saw her on my own first, and she had 2 pages of notes written about my case file. She had my scans up on the wall for me to talk through with me, which no one had done yet. And she had a book there and a laptop, and she had it open with my options. Still the same options, A and B, so mastectomy or lumpectomy. But there were other ways to go about it. And it's quite barbaric.
Presented in a much gentler, welcoming, humane kind of way.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and when, you know, she did inform me that unfortunately the gentleman that I had seen was one of her fellows. I was like, oh dear. So, but as I said to her, look, this is my body, this is my choice. And right now, the choices that you're presenting me, none of these feel comfortable. Like, this is so barbaric looking. You know, you want to take skin from my stomach and reattach it over my breast. Like, none of this. I just got to the point of a complete overwhelm. And I remember going back to the car that afternoon, and I have some hypnosis on my phone, and one of them was called Clearing the Now, which is an NLP process. And I put it on, and I just sat in the car, and my headphones in, and just listened to that for 10 minutes, and really had to sit down and go, what do I want to do? And one of my options that came up was nothing. I'm just going to go on living.
Let nature take its course.
And let's see what happens. And there's Tyler Tolman runs a 30-day cancer program overseas. And I was like, I want to go do that. But it was a very expensive program, and I didn't have the money. So I was like, right, what are my options? I live in this country. We have an incredible medical system, and still my only options are to have chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. So / cut and burn, basically, as they call it in the medical world. There were so many other options that are in Europe, and because I lived overseas for quite a number of years, I was, you know, frustrated because I'm like, in Europe, for example, at the moment, they're trialing a process where they go in and they freeze the cancer cells inside the breast tissue. So it's like a biopsy, but the needle goes into the cell and freezes it so that it doesn't. There is some concern that when you go in and you open up the breast tissue and you expose the cancer cells to air, they can spread. Or a biopsy will pierce that particular tumor cell, and then when you remove the biopsy needle, it may spread cancer cells from there. Yes, exactly. So this new process that's being trialled in Europe is they go in, they freeze the cells while they're inside the breast tissue, no chemo, no radiation.
Are they doing this with stem cells? Are they doing this with mice? Are they doing it with humans? It's
now moved into a human trial phase. So, but it's not something that we'll get here for another 10 years. So, you know, I'm living in the now. So what are my choices? So other than, you know, like panicking was not an option. So it's amazing what fear drives people. So most people's responses were, oh, fuck, which was pretty much my response. Even my father, who never swears, that was his response when I rang to tell him. My boss, his response was the same, oh, fuck. And he's like, you're the most extraordinary human being I know, you know, because I'm like, I'm just going to kick this. It's fine. He goes, I need you to think worst case scenario. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? There is no worst case scenario. I'm like, maybe you lose a breast. And he's like, you are the most extraordinary human being I know. He said, what is the worst case scenario? He said, just for 5 seconds, what is it? And I was like, I die. And he went, right, so what are your choices? And I'm like, to live. So even if I only have 5 years left, I'm going to make it the best fucking 5 years of my life, aren't I? And he's like, all right. He's like, what do you need? I'm like, I don't know. I said, I'm going to spontaneously burst into tears. please don't look at me like, you know, you feel sorry for me or you're sad or whatever. And he's like, all right. Like, he's like, okay. And, you know, at this point I'd started fertility treatment. So, you know, I was self-injecting every night. And, you know, my poor boss, he was just, sometimes I think he was looking at me going, oh my God, because I would just burst into tears in spontaneous conversation. He's like, do you need to go for a walk? I'm like, no, but if you tune in near me again, I'm going to hit you. I can't even now, 9 months later after having fertility treatment, I still can't stand the smell of tuna. I cannot eat it.
What's that all about?
So when you have the fertility treatment, you know, you're being hugely injected with a massive amount of hormones. And so everything gets more sensitive. So basically your body's getting ready for pregnancy, only I didn't continue on into that mode. So everything's heightened. So the sense of smell, I got car sick. I've never been car sick in my life. And I was warned by my fertility specialist that that's now will be, if I end up having children naturally or even through IVF, then I will probably get car sick while I'm pregnant. Like, that's wonderful.
Exciting.
I'll take that. It's only a little side effect compared to, you know, the other things. But yeah, I can't handle that anymore. I found the self-injection of the hormones was a very fascinating thing to do. It's amazing what the female body can do. I was told in my very, very early 20s that I had a very small percentage of ever having children due to hormonal issues. But I saw
something, not enough of something.
Pretty much, yeah, a bit misbalanced. And so this fertility specialist was recommended to be by my Chinese herbal medicine man, and who he is known as the baby maker in Brisbane, and he works with Dr. Glenn Sterling here in Brisbane, and he's one of the best in Australia. And
what's his name?
Dr. Glenn Sterling.
Okay.
So and then Andrew Orr is my my Chinese herbal acupuncturist man. Two incredible men who move mountains. So within 24 hours I had an appointment with Glenn, and he just took incredible care of me. So we did the fertility, which I had while I was going through surgery as well. I came out of hospital on the Friday. We went and had an ultrasound, and I had 28 eggs. So, you know, that in itself was a huge feat. So it's given me choice. Yeah. So a week later we had
got plenty of options.
loads of options. As my mum calls them, they're her granticles. So, you know, and even, you know, I said to Glenn, I said, I just didn't think it was possible. And he's like, have we met? I'm like, yeah, good point. the man is God. So day of retrieval, we ended up with 25 eggs, and I have 22 that are viable and frozen. So, you know, they will be forever 36.
Still plenty enough.
Years old. Yeah, you just, you know, one healthy baby, if it is to happen, will be fine. Yeah. But, you know, leading up, once I'd made the decision around the surgery, you know, it really does play havoc with the female mind, because our breasts are part of who we are as our feminine, and they are powerful. They give life, and yet here mine were kind of fighting against me for whatever reason.
And it's very close to the heart, and, you know, the neural pathways opening the kind of chest, and, you know, so
yeah, that's how we stand in our power. Exactly. So I did a lot of research leading up to my surgery, because I was very adamant that it was going to be the most, you know, efficient, effective surgery that she had ever done, and so that it would be
with
the best outcome.
Or research with, you did case studies, successful case studies, like, were you focused on the worst case scenario, best case? Like, what was your approach with that research?
Forget the worst case scenario. Not on my game. So I went, not an option. So I went straight to looking at the, you know, best case scenario of, you know, would be, okay, so, you know, if the lump had been 2 centimeters or smaller, there'd be no chemo and no radiation. So initially, for the first week and a half prior to my surgery, I'm like, right, the MRI showed the lump at 3.4 centimeters. I'm like, in my mind, I just kept imagining the lump shrinking. Yeah. It was small as I could possibly humanly imagine it going, like, let's just dissolve you. And, you know, obviously lymph nodes are a really important part. And one thing that, you know, you need to remember is you have lymph nodes all the way down your chest, you know, and around the breast tissue, through your arms and your legs. You know, there were concerns that we may have to remove, you know, a lot of those lymph nodes. We didn't know. And I was like, right, so I just want the smallest amount possible taken. And spent a lot of weeks, that week leading up, just researching other case studies of things that have occurred, other mindset things that have been done in other countries. So what they get people to do leading up to their surgeries. And, you know, also to, I'd researched and found that people had, you know, written sticky notes and put them on their chemo drugs and on their arms and all that kind of thing. So
the Dr. Marco stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did the same. So I, you know, even leading up to the surgery, I was like, this surgery is going to be easy. It's going to be efficient. It's going to be effective. And it's even going to surprise her. You know, like this lump's going to shrink.
So lots of visualization, lots of auto-suggestion.
Yeah, lots of visualization, a lot of, because I'm an NLP practitioner, I can NLP myself. So I did a lot of work around that. And when you research and you look at the trauma to the breasts and how we as women, we nurture and nourish, and we can deplete ourselves and our bodies very, very quickly. The left breast is over the heart. And, you know, when I look at what I've done in my life, I've given a lot. Like I was a social worker in child protection. I have been a maternity nanny. I've been a nanny. You know, I've cared and nourished and nurtured a lot of people. When you read up, some of these things talk about the left breast holds shame and guilt and anger and disappointment. So I did a lot of emotional work around that and releasing and acknowledging what I hadn't acknowledged previously in the past. And even wrote what I call fuck off letters the night before my surgery to the cancer, to an ex-partner that, you know, I still, you know, was still holding onto some stuff. You know, like I wrote about 5 or 6 the night before my surgery, and then I burnt them. So, and then the morning of the surgery, it was still the same. You know, like a friend took a photo of me. I'm still doing, you know, there was a squat challenge in my training group that I was in at the time. And here I am in the hospital waiting room doing my 150 squats. You know, so I'm just like, we're just going to get on with this. And even when we went, I was waiting in the, you know, they gown you up and you're in there all day. And by the time you get into surgery, it's like, you know, 6 o'clock in the evening. We'd been there since 8 a.m. in the morning. And I'm in the room just before they take you into the operating theatre, and you're in there by yourself. And they're like, do you want some magazines to read? I'm like, oh, don't be ridiculous. It's perfect.
The theatre, the fact they call it theatre is quite amusing.
It is, isn't it? Because you're like, are we on a stage performing? When really, well, they are. They're performing their best. And I was joking with my surgeon going, come on, like, I love Grey's Anatomy. Where's my Mr. McSteamy? Like, this is just not fair. She's like, I've got a king of women for you. And I'm like, oh, fine. So she left me for 5 minutes on my own. And I just, in that 5 minutes, you know, I remember lying there and I just called in the universal team that operates above me. And I'm like, I will need the best of the best in here with me. And I just imagined gold light zoning down straight in through every part of my body, through my mind, into my breast tissue. And I was like, I am well. I am well. You will go in and everything will be removed and I will be fine. And when I got into the theatre, they, you know, you climb over and chatting away to everybody. And I just said to all of them, thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys are my medical team. And one of the nurses went, oh, no one's ever said thank you to us before. And I'm like, are you kidding? I said, if you weren't great at your job, then I said, I wouldn't want you in here. So I said, this is my body. I said, and I'm going to entrust it to you for the next 2 hours. So I said, I'm giving you my gratitude. Thank you. And she was like, oh, and she's like, so I read on your file you donate blood. I said, well, I did. I won't be after this. And she's like, well, thank you. She said, because we never get to meet any of the donors. I'm like, oh, there you go. So again, just coming at it with just a different mindset. Instead of going in being afraid of what could go wrong, I focused on what could go right and what I wanted to go right. And I did let them know that I'm not very good at coming out of anaesthetic. I quite like that sleepiness of being in another world. So it did take me a little while to wake up. But when I did, my surgeon came up to me and she just said to me, Selina, it went better than I could have hoped or could have predicted. I only took 3 lymph nodes out. And she said, and I'm really pleased with how it looks. And I hope you will be too. She said, in the end, she said, the lump was only 2.4. And she said, I took out 5 centimetre margin.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So, like, you did really well. I'm like, oh, can I go back to sleep now? And she was like, okay. So, you know, that was it. Yeah, give me some more oxygen. And I think that was some of the, like I spent 4 days in hospital, and, I remember even I had a rough time with nerve damage, and, was on oxygen for a bit longer than they had suspected, and they kept me in a little bit longer than what they thought. There were a few little glitches that, I can't control, but I could control how I reacted to it. So I rested. Yep, I laughed. I had loads of visitors, beautiful flowers, even the first, I'm pretty independent and didn't want anyone to shower me, so I did it myself, and then, couldn't get myself dressed. So, I hear my bestie come in, and I'm like, hello, can you help get me dressed? And she just cracked up laughing, and she's like, oh, well, I got you in your pajamas the night of your surgery, so what's your difference? And she's like, have you had a look yet? And I'm like, no, I don't want to look at it yet. So I didn't look for a couple of days, but when I did, I was blown away, because what I'd seen in all the case studies, in everything else, and I'd said to my surgeon, use me as a case study, because I'd lost a lot of weight years before. My breast tissue skin was quite fine and paper thin, and she was worried about how the breast would hold. And yet, looking at it even now, I think she did a brilliant job, considering what I'd seen. I think it looks better now than it did prior to the surgery. So, yes, there's a big hole in it, but if wearing a bra, you can't tell. So, and I still have both of my breasts. So I did joke with her and said, you could have done the other one while you were there, And
what's the sensation and feeling like?
That's the other bizarre part. I was told I wouldn't have any sensation or feeling in the nipple, and I probably have more now than I've ever had.
Amazing.
So again, she did an incredible job. So there are days where, so for this morning, I did my training circuit session, and it was lots of push-ups and, medicine ball slams and weights, etc. There are days where, it is quite painful, but it's not a pain like I knew before the surgery. It's like, there's scar tissue there which I have to massage, and I no longer have coiling. I can now chest press 12 kilos in hand weights. So, it's about rebuilding the strength. I'm always going to have a puffy left arm, from the lymph node removal. But again, they only took 3. So I'm so lucky. I'm so incredibly blessed around that space. We're coming up to a 1-year mark, which means I go back in to the surgeon and they poke and prod me. We have an MRI and they say, yay, you're fine, whatever. I did the chemo and the radiation. I didn't want to do the radiation. I did in the end. But I took a break between the chemo and radiation. Normally they don't let you. And I just have to say, no, I want a break. I'm not ready to do this to my body again. I only did, in the end, because the lump was so small, originally it was meant to be 8 rounds of chemo and 6 drugs. In the end, it came to 4 rounds and 2 drugs. So again, we had fun with that. I wrote words on my arms like, I'm well, I'm healthy, I'm happy. Every cell in my body is alive with health and vitality. The nurses said that they'd heard about patients doing this, but never had anyone do it. So it was a bit of a novelty on my chemo ward. Well, they've even shown that patients who are unwell and you put them in a room there with the yellow paint on the walls, they actually heal faster, because yellow is the colour of the sun, and it makes you feel good. So you produce those hormones in your brain, good old oxytocin and serotonin, that help your brain, create that sense of aliveness and well-being. So I was determined to have chemo to be fun, and which is what we did. So if I had to wear the hat on my head, you had to wear something on your head as well. No crying. We weren't allowed to cry. I knew I was allowed to cry. So dancing, card games, we had fun. And every time after chemo, I'd go for a walk for a good hour afterwards, because again, what I'd read has shown that patients who exercise or walk after chemo have a better response and better recovery time. And again, chemo plays havoc with your body on so many levels. I had metallic taste in my mouth. Food just tasted like poison. Everything tasted like poison. you know, my smell got really heightened. So there were certain things I couldn't handle, which made me want to vomit.
This was the tuna.
Yeah, the tuna 10 times over. You know, the pain in my bones, I thought my bones were going to implode. You know, 24 hours after you have chemo, you have to self-inject yourself with some steroids. And it's just, you know, like there were days where I remember my mum saying to me one day, you know, is this normal? And it's probably the first time I really yelled at my mother, poor thing. And I was like, this isn't fucking normal. None of this is fucking normal. I don't fucking know. And she was like, okay.
Wrong question. I'm just going to back out of here quietly.
She literally did. I went and laid on the bathroom floor that night in chronic pain because I wasn't sure if I wanted to vomit or what I wanted to do. And I wanted to, you know.
Is there any,
and I felt,
is there any like, what are you, is there like, the opiates that you get prescribed for pain, or is there, you know, can you get prescribed, I don't know, THC or CBDs or anything like this?
Yeah, what they give you doesn't touch the edges. So I had endone for the nerve damage and pain in my breast tissue,
which
and
is Lyrica, opiate, right?
Yep, which I got off really quickly because they're high addictive drugs. But I was also still doing fertility at the time. I'd come out of hospital, so I was really conscious of what, you know, that's all going to affect the eggs. So, so acupuncture was one of my God-given gifts of being able to have that, you know, the next day after chemo. If I did that, I had less reaction. And having it 2-3 times a week, some weeks where I could. Chinese herbal medicine treats the blood as a whole. It doesn't treat the disease. And I say disease. So had that going on the whole time. Panadol, osteopanadol they gave me, which was about all I was allowed to have. Homeopathy, kinesiology, NLP, hypnosis. I did the lot to try and manage it. And you know, my mum's partner, bless him, wasn't really sure what to do, so he would just pour me a scotch on ice and give it to me. So like,
did that help at all?
it helped me sleep. So and look, I decided that, you know, if all I did one day was get out of bed and go lie on the, you know, my mum and her partner have a farm, so I laid on a couch out in the sun under a blanket because, you know, even though it was the middle of summer, chemo really throws your entire body into a disillusion. You know, I would get cold and shake to the point of, you know, it looked like I was having an epileptic fit. And then there were other days where, you know, I managed, if I could walk up to the chicken yard and get the eggs, that was a huge win. Massive win. And then, you know, I did a video one day of walking down. My goal was to walk down to the front gate and collect the mail, and I did that. And I remember it took me, you know, like, we're only talking about 100, 200 meters down a hill. And I remember trying to come back up the hill, and Mum had to come and help me up the hill because I couldn't get up the hill. And recently I went and stayed with her a couple of weeks ago for a week, and I went for a 6.5 kilometer walk. And when I came back, she like looked at me and I was like, do you remember 6 months ago I couldn't even walk to your front gate? And she's like, yep.
Amazing.
She's like, you know, she said, you're here for a purpose, kiddo. She said, God knows what it is, but she said, you know, nothing will define you or keep you down. And I'm like, well, you've seen my demise, now watch my rise. Like, okay.
Talk to us about that, about what that is.
It's letting go of the old identity of my life, of what it was pre-BC. You know, I had big plans. You know, I was going to buy a house and, you know, keep building my coaching business up and, you know, making a massive difference in the world by how women thought and felt about themselves through weight loss and self-esteem and leadership. BC showed me that we spend so much time sweating the bullshit. There is so much bullshit that we get caught up and surround ourselves with. What it showed me was that I can have massive self-awareness and teach others and guide them to do the same so that they can really hone in on what they really want. You know, life is too short to not have the things that you desire and that resonate and that make you happy. Like, you are the only person responsible for your happiness, and yet we spend billions of dollars a year having the next best thing, or, you know, having the new car or whatever. Like, go do that, that's great, but it's not the core being of who you are that's going to have you operate in this world. So, you know, I want to leave a legacy of people being able to tap into their inner self and to spend more time being in who they are and what they want to do, so that they're more powerful.
Yeah.
If you're happy, you're more powerful in your life, there's less need for, suppressing those emotions and those feelings with drugs and food and alcohol. And, like I used to emotionally comfort eat myself into oblivion. And once I learned about the mind and the unconscious mind, and I learned about how our emotions drive and fuel our bodies, I was able to change all of that and create a whole new space for myself in my life and in this world.
Yeah.
And I finally fell in love with who I was back then. And that's a very different woman to who I am now. I'm still pretty determined and stubborn, but I'm much more selfish now than I've ever been, because this is my one life, and I got something I need to do, and it's going to take bigger than what I've been playing. And breast cancer pretty much was like, well, you've been hiding, so you got to stop hiding now, because we're going to push you right out into that huge unknown.
Amazing.
So already I've delivered workshops at breast cancer survivor retreats around the mind and how to, use it to your best advantage to, be more within yourself. Also doing inspirational talks for people around leadership and confidence. But it's really about, I want you to change the way you think and see yourself and be who you really are, instead of what everybody else keeps telling you. Because I don't want people to have something like cancer or, marriage breakdown or redundancy or anything like that, for them to kick their ass into gear. Do it before this big shit happens.
Prevention is better than cure. Yeah.
But educate yourself. Your knowledge is power. Your body is constantly communicating everything to you. But because we don't live in...
It is power once you do something with it. You can get all the knowledge in the world. Unless it's actually applied, I think it's that's why implementation, I find, is the kicker. You can study the thing, you can get the theory, you can understand it. Unless it's applied, then I'd feel it's a bit of a waste.
Absolutely, that's just it. You can have the excuse, or you can have the results, but you can't have both. So go and do the action, actually follow through, and give yourself permission to shine and be the best that you can be, because there is no one else in this world like you. And the world wouldn't be the world if you weren't in it. So why do you want to play small? Why do you want to hide? Why do you want to do what he told you to do 20 years ago? Like, we're in this luxury world now where we can have multiple careers in our lives. We don't need to stick to the one thing. And, there are times where I have felt like I failed, and, that I haven't, ticked off the status quo boxes. I'm not married, I don't have a family, I don't own a house. But at the same time, the feedback instead, if I don't look at the failure and I look at the feedback, I've lived an incredible life. I've traveled around the world. I've met some of the most amazing people who I would never have known otherwise. My life is so full of so many different blessings. I've, I've climbed inside a pyramid in Giza. I've swum in the Nile. I've been inside, the palace in Russia on Christmas Eve, watching Swan Lake, like
You've lived life.
I've done a lot in my small life, but I want more. And for a long time, I didn't allow myself to have it. And because, we're taught that, this is just the beginning. So this is my new book of life, and it's my new identity. And I'm writing an online program called the Embirthment Project. And embirthment, because it's an empowerment of my rebirth, and I want people to be able to have that as a choice. I don't want people to have something that's going to happen to them. I don't wish
a catalyst.
I wouldn't wish this kind of catalyst on anyone, but it happens. So it's how I'm going to react to that, and if I can help others to navigate things in their life where they can react differently and move up and beyond the situation or the drama that is there and present, then they'll be more of who they are, and they'll do more instead of sitting and twiddling their thumbs or if you're going to blame people in your life for all the shit stuff, then you better blame them for all the good stuff too,
Right.
because there's an ecosystem that operates around you. So you are the 5 people that you spend your most time around, according to Mr. Tony Robbins. So who are you going to spend your time around? So you can either live in fear, or you can have it just kind of spice your life up a bit and get on with the rest of it another way.
We could use it as the fuel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
And look, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a nurse. I spent many years as a social worker in child protection. I've seen human behaviour many, many times. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. And before I was diagnosed, I would never have ever entertained the idea of chemotherapy or radiation. It went against everything I believed in. But when I sat down and went, I want to live, I'm going to need to use every tool that is available to me in this life to give me my best chance. I know I'm stronger than this stuff. So, let me transform it. Let me deal with it in my head. And let's get on with it.
Amazing.
And now I've been accepted onto the consumer advisory group of the hospital where I was treated. So now I get to be a patient advocate for people coming in and how we can better serve and have better patient care. And mine's definitely around the emotional mindset. If we can help people to have a stronger emotional mindset in their treatment plan, then, they'll have better outcomes. And that's been proven through Harvard and Cambridge. And so, all these different
tools are there. Why not? Why aren't we using them?
Absolutely. Why aren't we using them? Why the hell not? So, the more we can educate and learn and inspire other people, the more the life works. And I don't know where it's going to take me, but I'm damn excited about it.
Well, that's the joy, isn't it? That is the exciting thing. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely incredible. Plenty of gold in there to take. There's so many levels and layers of the undercurrent and the message that read between the lines. So yeah, that's absolutely. I just want to say, I'm so inspired just talking to you and hearing that story. So if I am, for sure, anyone listening can definitely take something from that as well. So I would love to do this again at some time and go further and deeper into some of the work that you're doing. So if you're open to,
would love to
at some point, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing, especially as I continue to deep dive and work with people more and more around their emotional mindset and well-being. I really believe that wellness in the mind creates wellness in the body, and I want to be living proof of that as every day. So, I plan to still be around when I'm 101.
Yeah.
And
I'm
going to be
on episode 8,000 and
be doing it with style, but at the same time, it's, if anyone, obviously anyone can message me on Facebook at any time. I've fielded people from all across the world with different questions and theories, and I'm happy to have a chat.
I imagine it wouldn't just be BC. It's any kind of setback, any kind of challenge, any kind of crisis or challenge or struggle. A lot of these principles that you're sharing would totally relate.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I even had a gentleman contact me recently. His wife had passed away from cancer, and he said that watching my videos really helped him to understand what it was, what it would have been like for her. But he said he also really got a whole different perspective on who he needs to be now that he's living in this world without her. So, that's the thing. If I can inspire one person to live their life differently, then I'll keep sharing, and I'll keep, my wins and my fallovers. I'll do it all.
Amazing.
If that means, you get to be the next level in your life, why not? Beautiful.
And on that note, I would like to invite you to share just one little last piece for the Flow fam, whether it's a message you want to share, a question you want to ask. What do you feel is coming through at the moment that you'd like to share, just to leave as a last little bit of to leave the listeners with?
I would love to have the listeners ask themselves this question, because I'm curious to know, And I wonder what's going to show up for them this week if they ask themselves, what specifically do I really want in my life now?
So get specific.
And just get really specific about it, and just do some free flow writing. So just sit somewhere quiet with a pen and a piece of paper and just let yourself trust your unconscious mind, just to free flow, and ask yourself, what is it do I specifically want now? And I'm curious to see what they'll come up with, because I can guarantee you it won't be what they thought.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So there you got it. Selina Jane Louise, thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening. Thanks for
I will. Give gratitude, be love.
Evening with us.
Thank you. But yes, give gratitude and be love, and I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, you will. So until next time, guys, you know what to do. Rock on. Peace out.